The letter trembled in Brianna Thompson's hands as she read it for the third time, hoping the words would somehow change. They didn't. Final notice. Payment of $2.3 million due within 30 days or legal action will proceed. Her father sat across from her in their small living room, his head in his hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. This was the man who had worked every day of his life to build Thompson's construction from nothing, who had put her through college, who had never asked anyone for anything. Now he was broken. "Dad, how did this happen?" Brianna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She was 26 years old, working as a teacher's assistant at Jefferson Elementary, making just enough to help with the household bills. She had no savings, no way to help with a debt this massive. Her father looked up, his brown eyes red and swollen. "Harrison Blake. I borrowed money from him 3 years ago to expand the business. The contracts I was promised fell through. The economy changed. I couldn't pay him back on time and the interest just kept growing. I tried, baby girl. I tried so hard." Harrison Blake. Even Brianna knew that name. The billionaire CEO who owned half the real estate in the city. The man they called ruthless in the business pages. The man who destroyed competitors without mercy. And now her father owed him more money than they could make in 10 lifetimes. "There has to be something we can do," Brianna said, standing up and pacing the worn carpet. "We can sell the house, sell everything. We can." "It's not enough," her father interrupted. "I already looked into it. The house is worth maybe $200,000. We have nothing else. Blake's lawyers sent that letter. They're going to take everything and sue for the rest. We'll lose the house, the business, everything. And I'll probably end up in jail for fraud because I can't pay." Brianna felt her world spinning. Her mother was upstairs, sick with pneumonia, needing medication they could barely afford. Her younger brother, Tyler, was in his senior year of high school, dreaming of college. If they lost everything, those dreams would die too. The doorbell rang, sharp and sudden, in the quiet house. Brianna and her father looked at each other, fear reflected in both their faces. Her father stood slowly, moving like an old man even though he was only 52, and walked to the door. A tall man in an expensive gray suit stood on their doorstep. Behind him, a black luxury car sat at the curb, gleaming even in the fading afternoon light. The man's face was professional, neutral. "Mr. Thompson? I'm James Mitchell, attorney for Harrison Blake. Mr. Blake would like to speak with you and your daughter. He's waiting in the car." Brianna's heart dropped into her stomach. This was it. They were coming to take everything right now. She moved to stand beside her father, wrapping her arm around his. "Please," Mr. Mitchell said, his voice gentler than his expensive suit suggested. "Mr. Blake asked me to assure you that he just wants to talk. He has a proposal." Brianna and her father exchanged glances. What choice did they have? They walked down the cracked concrete path to the car. The back door opened, and Brianna found herself looking at Harrison Blake for the first time. He was younger than she expected, maybe 35, with dark hair and sharp green eyes that seemed to see right through her. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car, and his expression was unreadable. Not cruel but not kind either. Just cold and calculating. "Mr. Thompson. Miss Thompson. Please sit." He gestured to the seats across from him in the spacious back of the car. Brianna helped her father in, then climbed in herself, sitting on the leather seat that was softer than her bed at home. Harrison looked at them in silence for a moment, then spoke. "Mr. Thompson, you owe me $2.3 million. Money I don't actually need, to be clear, but money that is mine nonetheless. You can't pay me. We both know that." Her father nodded, unable to speak. "I could take your house, your business, and sue you for the remainder," Harrison continued, his voice matter-of-fact. "That's what my lawyers recommend. That's what any businessman would do. But I'm going to make you a different offer." Brianna held her breath, waiting. Harrison's green eyes shifted to her, studying her face with an intensity that made her want to look away. But she didn't. She met his gaze, lifting her chin even as her heart pounded. "I want to get married," Harrison said, still looking at Brianna. "Not for love. Not for companionship. For business reasons that don't concern you. I need a wife for exactly 1 year. In exchange, I will forgive your father's entire debt. All $2.3 million. The house stays yours. The business stays yours. Your family will be secure." Brianna felt like she'd been slapped. "What?" "Marry me for 1 year," Harrison repeated, his voice calm as if he was discussing a business contract. "Live in my home. Appear at public events as my wife. After 1 year we divorce quietly and you're free. Your father's debt is forgiven the moment you say, 'I do.'" "This is insane," Brianna said, finding her voice. You can't just buy a wife. I'm not buying you, Harrison corrected. I'm offering a business arrangement. You give me 1 year of your time. I give your family financial security. It's a fair trade. No, Brianna said immediately. Absolutely not. This is crazy. I'm not some object you can just purchase. I have a life, a job. Brianna, her father's voice was hoarse. Baby, wait. Dad, no. Brianna turned to him. We'll find another way. We can. There is no other way, her father said, tears streaming down his face. In 30 days we lose everything. Your mother needs her medicine. Tyler needs to finish school. I can't go to jail, Brianna. I can't leave you all alone with nothing. But Dad. Brianna felt tears burning in her own eyes. 1 year, Harrison said, his voice cutting through their emotion like a knife. 365 days. Then you're free and your family is secure. Or I call my lawyers right now and you lose everything by the end of the month. The choice is yours, Miss Thompson. Brianna looked at this stranger, this cold, calculating man who held her family's future in his hands. She looked at her father, broken and desperate. She thought of her mother upstairs, too sick to even know what was happening. She thought of Tyler, who still believed the world was fair and kind. The weight of their lives pressed down on her shoulders. This wasn't fair. This wasn't right. But what choice did she have? Let her family lose everything because of her pride? Let her father go to jail? Let her mother go without medicine? I need time to think, Brianna said, her voice shaking. You have 60 seconds, Harrison replied, checking his expensive watch. I'm a busy man, Miss Thompson. I don't make offers like this twice. 60 seconds to decide the rest of her life. 60 seconds to choose between her freedom and her family's survival. Brianna closed her eyes, feeling the tears slip down her cheeks. She thought of every dream she'd ever had. A career in teaching. Finding real love someday. Living life on her own terms. All of it dissolving in the face of impossible debt and an impossible choice. 45 seconds, Harrison said, his voice showing no emotion at all. Her father reached over and took her hand, squeezing it gently. Baby, you don't have to do this. We'll figure something out. Well. But they both knew there was nothing to figure out. This was the only option. This was the only way. Time's up, Harrison said. What's your answer, Miss Thompson? Brianna opened her eyes and looked directly at Harrison Blake. She saw no warmth there, no kindness, no humanity. Just cold business calculation. This man didn't care about her or her family. He just wanted something and he had the power to take it. Yes, Brianna heard herself say. I'll marry you. Could you watch your family lose everything when you had the power to save them? What would you do if you were in Brianna's shoes? Drop a comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to see how this impossible situation unfolds. Will Brianna survive a year married to a man who sees her as nothing but a business deal? 3 weeks later, Brianna stood in front of a full-length mirror in a room at the courthouse, staring at a stranger. The woman in the reflection wore a simple but elegant dress in deep royal blue. Her dark brown skin glowed against the rich color, and her natural curls had been styled into soft waves that framed her face. She looked beautiful. She felt dead inside. You look lovely, dear, said Mrs. Chin, Harrison's housekeeper, who had been sent to help Brianna prepare. The older woman had kind eyes and a gentle smile, but even her warmth couldn't melt the ice that had settled in Brianna's chest. Thank you, Brianna said automatically, smoothing the dress with trembling hands. She had chosen blue deliberately, the brightest color she could find, a small rebellion against the darkness of this situation. If she was going to be forced into this marriage, she would at least wear something that reminded her of the sky, of freedom, of everything she was giving up. There was a knock at the door and James Mitchell, Harrison's attorney, stepped in. It's time, Miss Thompson. Mr. Blake is waiting. Brianna took a deep breath and nodded. She had barely seen Harrison since that day in the car 3 weeks ago. He had sent his people to handle everything. The legal papers. The arrangements. The money that had appeared in her father's account the next day, enough to cover the immediate debts and her mother's medical bills. Harrison had kept his word on that, at least. The moment she had agreed, he had started taking care of her family's financial problems. But he hadn't spoken to her. Hadn't called. Hadn't even asked if she needed anything. He had simply sent instructions through James about when and where to show up for the wedding. Brianna walked down the courthouse hallway, her heels clicking on the polished floor. Through an open doorway, she could see the small room where the ceremony would take place. No flowers. No music. No guests except for the lawyer and the judge. Her family wasn't even there. Harrison had insisted on a private ceremony, and she hadn't fought him on it. How could she invite her family to watch her sell herself? Harrison stood by the window looking out at the city below. He wore a black suit that fit him perfectly, and when he turned to look at her, his expression was completely neutral. Not happy. Not sad. Just businesslike, as if he was about to sign a contract rather than marry a woman. "Miss Thompson," he said, nodding to her. Not even using her first name. "Mr. Blake," she replied, keeping her voice steady. The judge, a middle-aged woman with gray hair and a professional smile, gestured for them to stand before her. "Shall we begin?" The ceremony was brief and cold. The judge read the legal words, asking if they took each other as husband and wife. Brianna heard herself say, "I do," her voice sounding hollow in the small room. Harrison said the same, his voice firm and clear. He slipped a ring onto her finger, a simple platinum band with a large diamond that probably cost more than her father's house. She had no ring for him. No one had thought to arrange that detail. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the judge said. "You may kiss the bride." Harrison looked at Brianna for a moment, then leaned in and pressed a brief, cold kiss to her cheek. Not her lips. Her cheek. As if even that small intimacy was too much for their business arrangement. "Congratulations," James said, smiling as if this was a real wedding. "The car is waiting to take you to the estate." The estate. Brianna's new home. No, not home. Her prison for the next year. The drive took 40 minutes, leaving the city and heading into the countryside where the truly wealthy lived. Harrison sat across from her in the car, working on his phone, not speaking. Brianna looked out the window, watching her old life disappear behind her. When they arrived, Brianna couldn't help but stare. The estate was massive, a sprawling mansion with white stone walls and huge windows that gleamed in the afternoon sun. The grounds stretched out in every direction, perfectly manicured lawns and gardens that looked like something from a magazine. "Welcome home, Mrs. Blake," James said as the car stopped in front of the main entrance. Mrs. Blake. The name felt foreign, wrong. She wasn't Mrs. Blake. She was Brianna Thompson, forced into a situation she never wanted. Harrison got out of the car without waiting for her and walked toward the house. Brianna followed, feeling like a guest in a place she was supposed to live. Inside, the mansion was even more impressive. High ceilings, marble floors, expensive art on every wall. It was beautiful and cold, just like the man who owned it. Mrs. Chin appeared, still smiling warmly. "Let me show you to your room, dear." "Her room is in the East Wing," Harrison said, speaking to Mrs. Chin but clearly intending the message for Brianna. "The third door on the left. My room is in the West Wing. I don't expect you to cook or clean. The staff handles everything. You're free to use any of the common areas. The library. The gym. The pool. Just stay out of my office." Brianna turned to look at him. "Anything else, Mr. Blake? Any other rules for your purchased wife?" Harrison's green eyes narrowed slightly, the first real emotion she had seen from him. "Yes, actually. When we're in public, you will act like a dutiful wife. Smile. Hold my arm. Pretend you're happy. When we're here, you can do whatever you want as long as you stay out of my way. I have work to do and I don't have time for drama." "Drama?" Brianna felt anger rising in her chest, hot and sharp. "You forced me into this marriage and you're worried about drama?" "I forced nothing," Harrison said, his voice cold. "You made a choice. You chose your family's financial security over your freedom. That was your decision, Miss Thompson. It's Mrs. Blake now, remember?" Brianna shot back. "Or does that only matter when we're in public?" For a moment, something flickered in Harrison's eyes. Surprise maybe, or respect. But it disappeared as quickly as it came. "Mrs. Chun will show you to your room. Dinner is at 7 if you want to join me. If not, the kitchen will bring something to your room." He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Brianna watched him go, feeling a mix of anger and something else she couldn't quite name. Maybe sadness. Maybe fear. Maybe just exhaustion from the weight of everything that had happened. "Come, dear," Mrs. Chin said gently, touching Brianna's arm. "Let me show you your room. It's very lovely. I think you'll like it." Brianna followed the housekeeper up a grand staircase and down a long hallway. The room Mrs. Chin showed her was indeed lovely. Huge and bright, with large windows overlooking the gardens. The bed was enormous, covered in soft white linens. There was a sitting area with comfortable chairs, a desk, and a door that led to a private bathroom that was bigger than Brianna's entire bedroom at home. "Mr. Blake had me prepare everything," Mrs. Chin said, opening the closet to reveal it was already full of clothes. Dresses, casual wear, shoes, everything in Brianna's size. If you need anything else, just let me know. How did he know my size? Brianna asked, feeling disturbed by the level of detail. Mrs. Chin smiled kindly. Mr. Blake is very thorough in everything he does. Try to rest, dear. I know this is all very overwhelming. After Mrs. Chen left, Brianna sat on the edge of the enormous bed and looked around the beautiful room that felt like a gilded cage. She had saved her family. Her father's debt was gone. Her mother could get the medical care she needed. Tyler could finish school and go to college. They were safe. But what had she lost? Her freedom. Her dreams. Her chance at real love. She was married to a man who saw her as nothing but a business transaction, a problem he had solved with money. She would live in this beautiful prison for a year, playing the role of dutiful wife in public while being treated like an unwanted stranger in private. Brianna lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, and let herself cry for the first time since she had said yes in that car. She cried for her lost dreams, for her stolen future, for the girl she used to be who believed that love and kindness mattered more than money and power. Tomorrow she would be strong. Tomorrow she would figure out how to survive this year with her dignity intact. But tonight, in this beautiful room in this cold mansion, she let herself grieve for everything she had given up. The first week at the estate felt like living in a luxury hotel where Brianna was the only guest. She woke each morning in the enormous bed, disoriented for a few seconds before remembering where she was and why. The sun would stream through the windows, making the room glow with warm light, but the beauty of it all felt hollow. Mrs. Chen brought breakfast to her room every morning, always with a kind smile and gentle conversation. The housekeeper never asked intrusive questions, never made Brianna feel judged, but her kindness somehow made everything harder. It reminded Brianna that people could be good, could be caring, even in a house run by a man who seemed to have no heart at all. Harrison was a ghost in his own home. Brianna would hear him sometimes, his footsteps in the hallway early in the morning before she woke, or late at night when she couldn't sleep. She would see him leaving for work through her window, climbing into one of his expensive cars and disappearing down the long driveway. But they never spoke, never ate together, never occupied the same space if they could help it. On her fourth day at the estate, Brianna decided she couldn't hide in her room forever. After breakfast, she dressed in jeans and a bright green blouse and set out to explore the mansion. If this was going to be her prison for a year, she might as well know every corner of it. The house was massive, with rooms that seemed to go on forever. There was a formal dining room that could seat 20 people, a sitting room with a piano, a sunroom filled with plants, and a library that made Brianna's heart ache with longing. The library was 3 stories tall, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves full of books. Comfortable chairs sat by the windows, and a spiral staircase led to the upper levels. It was the most beautiful room Brianna had ever seen. She spent hours in the library that day, running her fingers along the spines of books, pulling out volumes and reading passages. There were classics and modern novels, history books and poetry, books in languages she couldn't read. Harrison might be cold and calculating, but whoever had built this collection loved books. Really loved them. I see you found the library. Brianna jumped, nearly dropping the book she was holding. Harrison stood in the doorway, still wearing his suit from work, his tie loosened. It was past 8 at night. She hadn't even realized how late it had gotten. I'm sorry, Brianna said automatically. You said I could use the common areas. I thought. You can, Harrison interrupted. I'm not here to scold you. I just came to find a book. He walked into the library, moving past her to one of the far shelves. He pulled out a thick volume and then paused, looking at what she was holding. Poetry? Brianna looked down at the book in her hands. It was a collection of Maya Angelou's poems. Yes, I've always loved her work. Harrison nodded, his expression unreadable. She's good. Direct. Honest. No wasted words. It was the most personal thing he had ever said to her. Brianna found herself curious despite her anger at him. Do you read a lot? When I have time, Harrison said. He moved toward the door, then stopped. Mrs. Chen tells me you've been eating in your room. You're welcome to join me for dinner if you want. Or not. Your choice. He left before Brianna could respond, leaving her standing in the library with her heart beating faster. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even really an invitation. But it was something. A crack in the wall he had built between them. The next evening, Brianna made herself go downstairs at 7. The dining room was set for 2, candles glowing on the table even though it was still light outside. Harrison was already there, reading something on his phone. He looked up when she entered and something flickered in his eyes. Surprise maybe. You came, he said. You invited me, Brianna replied, sitting down across from him. The table was long enough that they still had several feet of space between them, but it was closer than they had been since the wedding. Dinner was served by two staff members Brianna hadn't met yet, a young man named Carlos and a woman named Patricia. The food was incredible, roasted chicken with vegetables and potatoes, but Brianna barely tasted it. She was too aware of Harrison sitting across from her, occasionally glancing up from his phone. "How is your family?" Harrison asked suddenly, breaking the silence. Brianna looked up, surprised. "They're fine. My mother is feeling better. The new medication is helping. My father is trying to rebuild the business. My brother is excited about senior year." Harrison nodded. "Good." More silence. Brianna put down her fork. "Why did you do this? Really? You're a billionaire. You could have any woman you wanted. Why force someone into marriage?" Harrison looked at her for a long moment, his green eyes searching her face. For a second, Brianna thought he might actually tell her the truth. But then the walls came back up and his expression went cold again. "Business," he said simply. "Some of my investors are old-fashioned. They don't trust a young single man with their money. They want stability. A wife provides that image. So I'm just a prop," Brianna said, the words bitter. "Isn't that what you signed up for?" Harrison asked, but there was no cruelty in his voice. Just facts. Brianna had no answer to that. He was right. She had agreed to this. She had chosen her family over herself. But that didn't make it hurt any less. After dinner, Brianna went back to the library. She was curled up in one of the comfortable chairs, reading, when Harrison appeared again. He didn't say anything, just sat in another chair across the room and opened his own book. They read in silence for an hour, the only sound the occasional turning of pages. It became a pattern. Dinner together most nights, though often in silence. Then the library, reading in the same room but not speaking. It was strange and awkward, but it was also somehow comforting. Brianna wasn't quite so alone in this big empty house. One afternoon, Brianna discovered the gym on the lower level. It was fully equipped with every machine imaginable and a door that led to an indoor pool. She had always loved swimming, and the sight of the crystal-clear water called to her. She had brought her swimsuit, a simple one-piece in bright red, and she changed quickly and dove in. The water was perfect, cool and clean. Brianna swam laps, losing herself in the rhythm of her strokes, feeling free for the first time since the wedding. She didn't know how long she swam, but when she finally stopped and pulled herself to the edge of the pool, she looked up and saw Harrison standing there. He was in swim shorts, clearly intending to use the pool himself. Brianna's first instinct was to get out, to give him his space, but something made her stop. This was her house too, at least for now. She didn't have to run away every time he showed up. "The water's nice," she said, treading water in the middle of the pool. Harrison looked at her for a moment, then dove in without responding. He swam laps on the other side of the pool, keeping his distance but not leaving. They shared the space, each lost in their own thoughts, and somehow it didn't feel as awkward as Brianna expected. When she finally got out, Harrison called to her. "You're a strong swimmer." "I was on the swim team in high school," Brianna said, wrapping a towel around herself. "It shows," Harrison said, and then he went back to his laps. It was a small moment, barely a conversation, but it was something. Harrison was starting to see her as a person, not just a business arrangement. It wasn't friendship. It wasn't anything close to affection. But it was more than the cold distance of the first week. Brianna went back to her room and realized something that both comforted and scared her. Harrison Blake wasn't quite the monster she had thought he was. He was cold, yes, distant, but not cruel. He had given her family everything he had promised. He didn't bother her or make demands. He gave her space and freedom within the boundaries of their arrangement. And that made everything more complicated. It would be easier to hate him if he was terrible. Easier to count down the days until she could leave. But if he wasn't a monster, if he was just a man with walls built so high that nobody could see inside, then what did that mean? Brianna didn't have an answer. She just knew that living with Harrison Blake was getting more confusing every day. And she still had 11 more months to go. 3 weeks into the marriage, Brianna woke up to her phone ringing at 6 in the morning. It was her brother Tyler, his voice panicked. "Bri, it's Mom." She collapsed. "We're at the hospital. They think it's her heart. The doctors are running tests, but they're saying she might need surgery. Dad's freaking out and I don't know what to do." Brianna's heart dropped. "I'm coming right now." "Which hospital?" "Mercy General." "But Bri, the doctors are talking about some specialist in Boston. They said Mom needs someone who really knows what they're doing." "And the surgery?" "Dad says even with the money Mr. Blake gave us, we can't afford it." The insurance won't cover everything. I'll figure it out, Brianna said, already pulling on clothes. Just stay with Mom. Tell her I love her. I'll be there as soon as I can. She hung up and ran downstairs, not even thinking about the fact that she was wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt. She needed to get to the hospital. She needed to see her mother. Everything else could wait. But when she got to the garage, she realized she didn't have a car. She had been driven here in Harrison's vehicle, and she had no way to leave. Panic rose in her chest. She pulled out her phone to call a cab, but before she could dial, she heard footsteps behind her. What's wrong? Harrison stood there, already dressed for work even though it was barely past 6. He looked alert and focused, his green eyes sharp as he studied her face. My mother, Brianna said, her voice shaking. She's in the hospital. I need to go. She couldn't finish the sentence because tears were choking her throat. Which hospital? Harrison asked, his voice calm but urgent. Mercy General. Come on. Harrison walked toward one of the cars, a sleek blue sedan, and opened the passenger door. I'll drive you. Brianna didn't argue. She climbed in, and Harrison drove fast but carefully, navigating the early morning traffic with practiced ease. He didn't ask questions. Didn't tell her to calm down. He just drove, occasionally glancing over at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. They reached the hospital in 20 minutes. Brianna jumped out before the car fully stopped, running toward the emergency entrance. Harrison followed, his long strides keeping pace with her easily. She found her family in the waiting room. Her father looked like he had aged 10 years overnight, and Tyler was pale and scared. How is she? Brianna asked, hugging them both. They're still running tests, her father said. The doctor said something about a valve problem. They want to send her to a specialist, but... He trailed off, looking defeated. Mr. Thompson. Harrison's voice was quiet but firm. He had followed Brianna in and now stood slightly behind her. I'm Harrison Blake. Her father looked up, recognition and something like shame crossing his face. Mr. Blake. Thank you for bringing Brianna. The specialist your wife needs? Harrison said, ignoring the thanks. Is it Dr. Rachel Kim in Boston? Yes, Brianna's father said, surprised. How did you know? She's the best cardiac surgeon in the country, Harrison said, already pulling out his phone. I'll make sure your wife gets an appointment with her this week. Today if possible. And I'll arrange for a medical transport to Boston. We can't afford. Her father started. You're not paying, Harrison said simply, his fingers moving over his phone screen. Consider it handled. Brianna stared at him. This cold, distant man who barely spoke to her was suddenly making calls, arranging appointments, solving problems with the same efficiency he probably used to run his company. Within 10 minutes, he had spoken to 4 different people and a plan was in motion. Dr. Kim will see your wife tomorrow morning at 9, Harrison said, putting his phone away. A medical transport plane will take you all to Boston this afternoon. I've arranged for a suite at a hotel near the hospital. Everything is covered. Your wife will get the best care available. Brianna's father stood up, tears streaming down his face. Mr. Blake, I don't know what to say. This is too much. You've already done so much. Your daughter is my wife, Harrison said, and there was something in his voice that Brianna had never heard before. Something almost protective. That makes your family my responsibility. Make sure Mrs. Thompson gets better. A nurse appeared at that moment, calling for the Thompson family. Brianna's mother was awake and asking for them. Brianna moved to follow her father and brother, but stopped and looked back at Harrison. Thank you, she said, meaning it with every fiber of her being. Thank you so much. Harrison just nodded, but for a brief moment, his cold expression softened. Go be with your mother. I'll make sure everything is arranged. Brianna went to her mother's room, her heart full of confused emotions. The woman she saw in the hospital bed looked small and fragile, so different from the strong mother who had raised her. But her mother smiled when she saw Brianna, reaching out a weak hand. Baby girl, her mother whispered. Don't cry. I'm going to be fine. You're going to see the best doctor in the country, Brianna said, taking her mother's hand. Everything's going to be okay. Your husband arranged that? Her mother asked, her eyes knowing. Brianna nodded, not trusting her voice. He must care about you more than you think, her mother said softly. Did he? Or was this just more business to him? Taking care of his investment? Brianna didn't know anymore. The man who had coldly proposed a marriage of convenience didn't match the man who had just dropped everything to help her family. Who was Harrison Blake really? That afternoon, Harrison drove them all to a private airfield where a small medical plane waited. Brianna's mother was transferred carefully onto the plane, attended by 2 nurses Harrison had hired. Her father and Tyler climbed aboard, but Brianna hesitated at the steps. "Aren't you coming?" Tyler asked. Brianna looked at Harrison, who stood a few feet away watching. She was supposed to go. Her family needed her. But something made her pause. "I'll come up tomorrow," Brianna said. "Harrison has work and I should be here." It wasn't entirely true. Harrison could certainly handle his work without her. But Brianna realized she didn't want to leave him. Not after what he had done. Not when she was just starting to see past the cold exterior to something else underneath. The plane took off and Brianna and Harrison drove back to the estate in silence. But this silence felt different. Less empty. More comfortable. "You didn't have to do all that," Brianna said finally as they pulled up to the mansion. "Yes, I did," Harrison replied. He looked at her, really looked at her, and Brianna saw something in his eyes she had never seen before. Concern. Real, genuine concern. "Your mother will be fine. Dr. Kim is the best." "Why?" Brianna asked. "Why are you doing this?" Harrison was quiet for a long moment. "Because it matters to you," he said finally. "And despite what you think of me, I'm not a monster. I don't want people to suffer when I can help." He got out of the car and walked toward the house, leaving Brianna sitting there, her mind spinning. She had married a man she thought was heartless, cold, cruel. But that man had just moved heaven and earth to save her mother. That man had held her hand in the car on the way to the hospital, a gesture so brief she almost missed it, but she had felt it. She had felt the warmth of his hand on hers, trying to comfort her even though he didn't know how. Harrison Blake was not the man she thought he was. And that realization changed everything. That evening, when Brianna went down to dinner, she wore a dress in deep maroon instead of her usual casual clothes. Harrison noticed, his eyes lingering on her for a moment longer than usual. "You look nice," he said, and it was the first compliment he had ever given her. "Thank you," Brianna replied, sitting down. "And thank you for today. For everything." "You already thanked me," Harrison said, but his voice was gentler than usual. "I needed to say it again," Brianna said. "What you did for my family, that was more than just keeping up our arrangement. That was kind." Harrison looked uncomfortable with the word. "I just made some phone calls." "You did more than that," Brianna insisted. "You cared. Even if you don't want to admit it." Harrison didn't respond, but Brianna saw color rise in his cheeks. He was embarrassed. This powerful, confident billionaire was embarrassed by kindness. What had happened in his life to make him so uncomfortable with basic human decency? They ate in silence, but it was a companionable silence now. After dinner they went to the library together, a routine that had become familiar. Harrison sat in his usual chair with a book on business strategy, and Brianna curled up with a novel. But tonight she couldn't focus on the words. She kept looking over at Harrison, seeing him differently. "You're staring," Harrison said without looking up from his book. "I'm trying to figure you out," Brianna admitted. Harrison did look up then, his green eyes meeting hers. "Good luck with that. I don't even understand myself most of the time." It was the most honest thing he had ever said to her. And in that moment, Brianna realized something that terrified her. She was starting to care about Harrison Blake. Not because she had to. Not because of their arrangement. But because underneath all that ice, there was something worth caring about. Someone worth knowing. The question was, would he ever let her in? The text from Harrison came at noon on a Friday, 2 weeks after her mother's successful surgery in Boston. "Black tie event tonight. Be ready at 7. Dress is in your closet." Brianna sighed. She had known this part of the arrangement was coming. Harrison had been patient, not dragging her to any public events while her mother recovered. But now it was time to play the role she had agreed to. Dutiful wife. Happy couple. All an act for his business partners and investors. She went to her closet and found the dress hanging there, wrapped in protective covering. When she unzipped it, her breath caught. The dress was stunning, floor-length silk in a deep, rich red that would look incredible against her dark skin. The neckline was elegant but not revealing, and the fabric flowed like water. Mrs. Chin appeared at her door at 5, carrying a makeup kit and styling tools. "Let me help you get ready, dear. Mr. Blake wants you to look your best tonight." 2 hours later, Brianna looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Her curls had been styled into an elegant updo, with a few soft tendrils framing her face. Her makeup was flawless, emphasizing her high cheekbones and full lips. And the red dress fit her perfectly, hugging her curves in all the right places. Harrison was waiting in the foyer when she came downstairs. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, and when he looked up and saw her, he froze. His eyes widened slightly, and for a moment he just stared. "You look..." He stopped, seeming to struggle for words. "Beautiful. You look beautiful." "Thank you," Brianna said, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. "You look nice too." In the car, Harrison briefed her on the event. "It's a charity gala benefiting children's hospitals. There will be about 200 people there, mostly business leaders and philanthropists. Some of my investors will be present. I need you to smile, be pleasant, and act like we're a happy couple. Can you do that?" "I agreed to this, didn't I?" Brianna said, but there was no bitterness in her voice. Not like there would have been a month ago. The gala was held at a massive hotel ballroom, glittering with crystal chandeliers and filled with people in expensive clothes. Brianna felt out of place, like a girl from a small neighborhood playing dress-up in a world she didn't belong to. But Harrison's hand was warm and steady on her back as he guided her through the crowd. "Harrison, good to see you," a tall man in his 60s approached, shaking Harrison's hand. "And this must be your bride. We've all been dying to meet her." "Brianna, this is George Patterson," Harrison said, his hand moving to rest at her waist. "George, my wife Brianna." "Beautiful and charming, I can see why you finally settled down," George said, beaming at them both. "You're a lucky man, Harrison." "I know," Harrison said, and there was something in his voice that sounded almost real. They made their way through the crowd, Harrison introducing her to countless people whose names Brianna immediately forgot. Everyone wanted to meet the woman who had tamed the ruthless Harrison Blake. Everyone assumed they were madly in love. Brianna smiled until her face hurt, played the role perfectly, holding Harrison's arm and laughing at appropriate moments. But something strange happened as the evening went on. The act started to feel less like an act. Harrison's hand on her back felt natural. The way he looked down at her when she spoke felt genuine. When he leaned in to whisper a comment about one of the stuffier guests, making her laugh, it felt like they were a real couple sharing a private joke. Halfway through the evening, Brianna excused herself to find the restroom. When she came back, she saw Harrison across the ballroom, talking to a woman in a sleek black dress. The woman was beautiful, confident, and clearly interested in Harrison. She kept touching his arm, leaning in close, laughing at everything he said. Brianna felt a sharp stab of something in her chest. Jealousy. She was jealous. How ridiculous. Harrison wasn't really her husband. This was just an arrangement. He could talk to whoever he wanted. But then Harrison looked up, his eyes scanning the crowd until they found Brianna. When he saw her, his expression softened, and he politely extracted himself from the conversation with the other woman. He walked directly to Brianna, not stopping until he was right beside her. "There you are," he said, taking her hand. "I thought I'd lost you." "Who was that?" Brianna asked, trying to sound casual. "Victoria Morgan. An investor's daughter. She's been trying to get my attention for years." Harrison looked down at Brianna, and there was something almost teasing in his expression. "Were you jealous?" "No," Brianna lied, lifting her chin. "Why would I be?" "Good," Harrison said, but he was smiling slightly. "Because you're the one I'm here with. You're the one I want to be here with." Before Brianna could process those words, the lights dimmed, and a voice came over the speakers announcing the charity auction portion of the evening. Brianna and Harrison found seats at one of the tables near the front. The auction began, various items and experiences being sold off to benefit the children's hospitals. Brianna watched, fascinated, as obscene amounts of money were bid for things like vacation packages and artwork. But when the auctioneer announced a special item, the entire room fell silent. "Our final item tonight is very special," the auctioneer said. "A chance to fund a complete pediatric wing renovation at Mercy General Hospital, including state-of-the-art equipment and facilities. The winning bid will also have the wing named in their honor. Starting bid is $1 million. Several hands went up immediately. The bidding was fast and fierce, climbing quickly. 2 million. 3 million. 5 million. Finally, it came down to two bidders, a tech CEO named Richard Wong and Harrison. 8 million, Richard Wong called out. The room held its breath. That was an enormous amount even for this crowd. But Harrison raised his paddle without hesitation. $10 million. Gasps rippled through the ballroom. The auctioneer looked at Richard, who slowly shook his head. He was out. Sold to Harrison Blake for $10 million. The room erupted in applause. People stood, clapping and cheering. Brianna stared at Harrison in shock. $10 million. He had just donated $10 million without even blinking. Why did you do that? Brianna asked as they stood for the standing ovation. That's an incredible amount of money. Harrison looked at her and his expression was serious. Because kids deserve good healthcare. Because Mercy General is where your mother was treated. Because I can afford it and it will make a real difference. Brianna felt tears prick her eyes. This man. This complicated, confusing man who had bought her like a business transaction was also the most generous person she had ever met. After the auction ended, they were swarmed by people congratulating Harrison. Journalists took photos. Society ladies gushed about what a generous couple they were. Through it all, Harrison kept Brianna close, his hand never leaving her waist as if he was worried she might disappear. In the car on the way home, Brianna couldn't stay quiet anymore. Tell me about your childhood. Harrison looked at her, surprised. Why? Because I want to understand you, Brianna said honestly. I want to know why a man who gives away $10 million without blinking is also the man who proposed a business marriage. Those two things don't fit together. Harrison was quiet for a long time. So long that Brianna thought he wasn't going to answer. But then he started talking, his voice low and controlled. I grew up poor. Really poor. My mother worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. My father left when I was 5. I watched my mother work herself to death, literally. She died when I was 16 from a heart attack brought on by exhaustion and stress. No one helped us. No one cared. I swore I would never be poor again, never be powerless again. I'm sorry, Brianna said softly. Don't be, Harrison said. It made me who I am. I worked my way through college. Started my first business with money I saved from working nights at a warehouse. Built my company from nothing. And I learned that in business, you can't trust anyone. Everyone wants something from you. Everyone has an angle. Is that why you don't let anyone close? Brianna asked. Harrison looked at her, his green eyes intense in the dim light of the car. Yes. Every woman I've ever dated wanted my money. Every business partner I've ever had tried to cheat me. I learned to protect myself. To keep walls up. To never let anyone in far enough to hurt me. But you give away millions to charity, Brianna pointed out. That's different, Harrison said. That's just money. Money is easy. It's letting people into your life, into your heart, that's hard. And dangerous. Brianna understood now. Harrison had built an empire, but he had built it alone, trusting no one, needing no one. He gave away money because he remembered being poor, remembered watching his mother struggle. But he couldn't give away his heart because he had learned that people were dangerous. Not everyone is trying to hurt you, Brianna said gently. Maybe not, Harrison agreed. But how do you know which people are safe and which ones will destroy you? Brianna didn't have an answer to that. But as they drove through the dark streets toward the estate, she realized something important. Harrison had walls, yes. But tonight, he had let her peek over them. He had shared something real with her, something painful and personal. And that meant the walls were starting to crack. When they got home, Harrison walked Brianna to her room like a real husband might. At her door, he paused, looking down at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Thank you for tonight, he said. You were perfect. Everyone believed we were real. Maybe we are, Brianna heard herself say. A little bit. Maybe we're becoming real. Harrison reached out and tucked a loose curl behind her ear, his fingers gentle. Maybe, he said softly. Good night, Brianna. Good night, Harrison. She watched him walk away down the hall toward the west wing, and her heart was pounding. Something had shifted tonight. Something fundamental. They weren't just two strangers anymore, bound by a contract. They were two people starting to see each other. Really see each other. And Brianna realized she wanted to see more. The next morning, Brianna woke up to find a note slipped under her door. In neat, precise handwriting it said, Library. 10 a.m. If you're free. Brianna smiled. Harrison was actually asking to spend time with her. Not for business. Not for show. Just asking. She dressed carefully in jeans and a bright blue sweater, then made her way to the library at exactly 10 o'clock. Harrison was already there, sitting in his usual chair with 2 cups of coffee on the table between them. I didn't know how you'd take it, he said, gesturing to the cups. So I brought cream and sugar. Black is fine, Brianna said, sitting across from him and taking one of the cups. The coffee was perfect, hot and strong. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, then Harrison spoke. I wanted to apologize for last night. I said too much. You don't need to hear about my childhood trauma. No, Brianna interrupted. Don't apologize. I asked. And I'm glad you told me. It helps me understand you. Harrison looked at her, really looked at her, and Brianna saw vulnerability in his eyes. You're different than I expected. Different how? Kinder, Harrison said simply. I thought you would resent me. Hate me. And you did at first. I could see it. But now, you look at me like I'm a person, not a monster. Because you are a person, Brianna said. A complicated one. But not a monster. Monsters don't donate $10 million to children's hospitals. Monsters don't save their wife's mother when they could just let her suffer. Business investment, Harrison said automatically, but there was no conviction in his voice. No, Brianna said firmly. That's what you tell yourself. But I see you, Harrison. I see past the walls. You care. You just don't want anyone to know it. Harrison set down his coffee cup and stood up, moving to the window. He looked out at the gardens, his back to her. When I was 17, he said quietly, I fell in love. Her name was Lauren. She was beautiful, kind, everything I thought I wanted. We dated for 2 years. I was going to propose. I worked 3 jobs to save for a ring. He paused and Brianna waited, knowing this was important. Then I met her parents, Harrison continued. Rich. Very rich. I didn't know. She had never told me. When they found out she was dating someone poor, someone who wore second-hand clothes and worked as a janitor to pay for college, they told her to end it. And she did. Just like that. She said she loved me but not enough to disappoint her parents. Not enough to give up her comfortable life. Harrison, Brianna breathed, understanding now. That's when I learned, Harrison said, turning to face her. Love isn't real. It's just a transaction. People stay as long as you're useful, as long as you give them what they want. The moment you can't anymore, they leave. So I stopped believing in love. I built my empire. I became the kind of man that no one could reject. But I never let anyone close enough to hurt me again. Brianna stood and walked over to him. Not everyone is Lauren. Some people stay. Some people are loyal not because of what you can give them but because of who you are. Prove it, Harrison said, and there was a challenge in his voice. You're here because of a contract. Because I paid your father's debt. If I released you right now, if I said you could go free with no consequences, would you stay? Brianna's heart pounded. This was it. The moment of truth. She could lie, could play it safe. Or she could be honest and risk everything. Yes, she said, meeting his eyes. I would stay. Why? Harrison asked, his voice rough. Because I want to know you better, Brianna said honestly. Because in the past 2 months I've seen glimpses of someone incredible hiding behind all those walls. Someone kind and generous and lonely. I'd stay because I think you need someone to stay. Someone who won't leave when things get hard. Harrison stared at her, and Brianna could see the war happening behind his eyes. The desire to believe her fighting against years of protecting himself. Finally, he reached out and took her hand, his touch gentle. I'm not good at this, he said quietly. I don't know how to be a real husband. I don't know how to let someone in. Then we'll figure it out together, Brianna said, squeezing his hand. No pressure. No expectations. Just 2 people getting to know each other. Can we try that? Harrison nodded slowly. I'd like that. They spent the rest of the morning talking. Really talking. Harrison told her about building his company, the failures and successes, the people who had helped him along the way. Brianna told him about her dream of becoming a teacher, how she had given it up to help her father, how she missed working with kids. Why did you give up teaching? Harrison asked. I was just a teacher's assistant, not a real teacher, Brianna explained. I couldn't afford to go back to school for my teaching credential. And then Dad's business started failing and I needed to help with bills. The dream just seemed impossible. Harrison was quiet for a moment, then said, What if it wasn't impossible? What do you mean? I mean, what if you could go back to school? Get your teaching credential. Pursue your dream. You have time now. You're not working. The resources are available. Brianna felt hope flutter in her chest, but she pushed it down. Harrison, I can't ask you for that. You've already done so much. You're not asking. I'm offering, Harrison said firmly. What good is having money if I can't use it to help someone pursue their passion? Think about it at least. Brianna did think about it. For the first time in years, her dream didn't seem impossible. It seemed within reach. Thank you, she whispered. You keep thanking me, Harrison said, and there was something almost affectionate in his voice. Stop thanking me and just accept the help. Let me do this for you. Okay, Brianna agreed. I accept. With gratitude. Harrison smiled then, a real genuine smile that transformed his entire face. Brianna's breath caught. When he smiled like that, he was devastatingly handsome. And more than that, he looked happy. Really happy. Over the next few weeks, something shifted between them. The walls didn't come down all at once, but brick by brick, Harrison started letting Brianna in. They had breakfast together every morning, dinner every evening. They talked for hours in the library. They swam together in the pool. They even started watching movies together in the home theater, sitting close on the couch, sharing popcorn. Harrison told her about his favorite books, his business philosophy, his dreams for the future. Brianna shared her childhood memories, her hopes for her family, her plans for when she became a teacher. They learned each other's habits and quirks. Harrison liked his coffee black and strong. Brianna was allergic to strawberries. Harrison was a morning person. Brianna liked to stay up late reading. One evening, as they sat in the library, Harrison looked up from his book and said, "I need to tell you something." Brianna's heart jumped. "Okay." "The reason I needed to be married," Harrison said slowly. "The business reason I told you about. That was true, but it wasn't the whole truth." "What's the whole truth?" Brianna asked. "There's a clause in my grandfather's will," Harrison explained. "He left me a significant inheritance, but I can only access it if I'm married by the time I turn 36. Which is in 3 months. I thought I could handle it like any other business deal. Find someone willing to marry for a year, pay them handsomely, get my inheritance, move on. Clean and simple." "But," Brianna prompted. "But I didn't expect you," Harrison said, looking directly at her. "I didn't expect to actually like you. To want to spend time with you. To care what you think of me. This was supposed to be easy, Brianna. You were supposed to just be a contract. But you're not. You're so much more than that." Brianna felt tears prick her eyes. "Harrison." "I'm falling for you," Harrison said, the words coming out in a rush. "I know that's not part of our deal. I know you married me because you had no choice. But I need you to know. I'm falling for you and I don't know how to stop it. I don't even want to stop it." Brianna set down her book with shaking hands. "Can I tell you something?" "Anything," Harrison said. "I'm falling for you too," Brianna admitted. "I fought it. I told myself it was just gratitude, just Stockholm Syndrome or something. But it's not. I look forward to seeing you every morning. I think about you during the day. When you smile at me, my heart does this stupid fluttery thing. I'm falling for you, and it terrifies me because this is supposed to be temporary." Harrison stood up and crossed the room to her in 3 long strides. He knelt beside her chair, taking both her hands in his. "What if it doesn't have to be temporary? What if we make this real? Not a contract. Not an arrangement. A real marriage. Are you sure?" Brianna asked, searching his face. "I don't want you to feel obligated. I don't want—" Harrison cut her off by leaning in and kissing her. It was gentle and sweet and nothing like the cold peck at their wedding. Brianna melted into it, her hands coming up to cup his face. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathless. "I've wanted to do that for weeks," Harrison admitted, resting his forehead against hers. "Me too," Brianna whispered. "So is that a yes?" Harrison asked. "Will you be my real wife? Will you give us a chance to see where this goes?" Brianna smiled, feeling happiness bubble up inside her. "Yes. Yes, I'll give us a chance." Harrison kissed her again, and this time it was deeper, more passionate. When they finally pulled apart, he was grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. "I'm still going to mess this up sometimes," he warned. "I'm still going to have days where I retreat behind my walls. I'm still learning how to do this. And I'm still going to call you out when you're being ridiculous," Brianna countered. "I'm still going to push you to let people in. We're both going to mess up. But we'll figure it out together." "Together," Harrison agreed, kissing her once more. That night, Brianna went to bed with a smile on her face and hope in her heart. She had married a stranger, a man she thought she could never love. But somewhere along the way, that stranger had become someone precious. Someone worth fighting for. Someone who saw her, really saw her, and valued her for who she was. She was falling in love with her husband. And the best part? He was falling in love with her too. Are you rooting for Brianna and Harrison? Do you think they can make this work? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because things are about to get very interesting. 3 weeks after their confession in the library, Brianna and Harrison settled into a new kind of normal. It wasn't quite a traditional marriage yet, but it was something. They held hands. They kissed goodnight. They spent every free moment together. Harrison was trying, really trying, to be open and vulnerable even when it scared him. But the business world didn't care about their new relationship. And Harrison Blake had enemies he had made on his way to the top. Vincent Crawford was one of those enemies. He had been Harrison's business partner in the early days, before Harrison discovered Vincent was embezzling money from their company. Harrison had bought him out and exposed the fraud, destroying Vincent's reputation in the business world. Vincent had sworn revenge, but Harrison hadn't heard from him in 5 years. He had assumed Vincent had moved on, accepted defeat. He was wrong. The first sign of trouble came on a Tuesday morning. Harrison was in his home office, and Brianna was studying for her teaching credential exam in the library, when James Mitchell arrived unannounced, his face pale and worried. "Harrison, we have a problem," James said, closing the office door behind him. "Vincent Crawford is back." Harrison looked up sharply. "What do you mean back?" "He's been buying up stock in Blake Industries through shell companies," James explained. "We didn't see it until now because he used different names, routed it through various international accounts. But I just got a call from our trading department. Vincent now owns 15% of your company. He's calling for an emergency board meeting to oust you as CEO." Harrison stood up, his jaw tight. "That's not possible. I own 60% of the company. He can't." "He's been talking to other board members," James interrupted. "Spreading rumors. Saying your recent marriage is a sham. Saying you're mentally unstable. He's convincing people that you're a liability. If enough board members side with him, they can force a vote of no confidence. You'd still own your shares, but you'd lose control of the company." Brianna appeared in the doorway, having heard voices. "What's wrong?" Harrison looked at her, and she saw real fear in his eyes for the first time. "Nothing. Business problem. I'll handle it." "Don't shut me out," Brianna said firmly. "Tell me what's happening." Harrison sighed, then explained the situation. Vincent Crawford. The stock manipulation. The threat to his company. When he finished, Brianna's eyes were wide with concern. "What can we do?" she asked. "We?" Harrison asked, surprised. "Yes, we," Brianna said. "I'm your wife, remember? Your real wife now. Your problems are my problems. So what can we do?" Before Harrison could answer, his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered it on speaker. "Harrison Blake," a smooth voice said. "It's been a long time." "Vincent," Harrison said coldly. "What do you want?" "Just to chat," Vincent said, sounding amused. "I wanted you to know that I haven't forgotten what you did to me. You destroyed my career. You humiliated me. And now I'm going to return the favor. By the end of the week, you'll be out of your own company." "You can try," Harrison said. "But I still own controlling interest. You can't force me out." "Maybe not legally," Vincent agreed. "But I can destroy your reputation. I can make investors pull out. I can tank your stock price. And I can make your life miserable. Unless." "Unless what?" Harrison asked. "Unless you step down voluntarily," Vincent said. "Leave Blake Industries. Sell me your shares at a discount. Walk away. Then I'll leave you and your pretty new wife alone." Brianna felt ice run down her spine. Vincent knew about her. He was threatening her too. "And if I don't?" Harrison asked, his voice dangerous. "Then things get messy," Vincent said. "Accidents happen. Business deals fall through. People get hurt. You understand what I'm saying, don't you, Blake? You have so much to lose now. A beautiful wife. A nice life. Would be a shame if something happened to any of it." The line went dead. Harrison stood there, his face pale, his hands clenched into fists. Brianna had never seen him look so furious. "He threatened you," Harrison said quietly. "He threatened you, and I'm going to destroy him." "No," Brianna said firmly. "We're going to outsmart him. Together. What do we know about Vincent Crawford?" Harrison looked at her like she was crazy. "Brianna, this is dangerous. Vincent isn't playing games. He's serious." "So am I," Brianna said. "You're not alone anymore, Harrison. You don't have to fight this by yourself. Now, tell me everything about Vincent Crawford." Over the next few hours, Harrison, Brianna, and James worked together, piecing together everything they knew about Vincent. His business dealings. His connections. His weaknesses. Brianna proved to have a sharp mind for strategy, asking questions that Harrison and James hadn't thought of, seeing angles they had missed. "He's bluffing about the board members," Brianna said finally. "Think about it. If he really had the votes to oust you, he would have called the meeting already. He wouldn't waste time with phone calls and threats. He's trying to scare you into leaving voluntarily because he knows he can't actually force you out." Harrison stared at her. "You're right. Of course you're right. He's all talk." "Not all talk," James cautioned. "He still owns 15% of the company. That's enough to cause serious problems. We need to find a way to get him out." "What if we buy him out?" Brianna suggested. Force him to sell. Offer him more money than his shares are worth. Make it impossible for him to say no. That would cost a fortune, Harrison said. We're talking hundreds of millions. Do you have it? Brianna asked. Yes, but. Then do it, Brianna said firmly. Get rid of him once and for all. Buy him out. Send a message that you won't be threatened. That you're stronger than he is. Harrison looked at her with something like awe. When did you become so ruthless? When someone threatened my husband, Brianna said, taking his hand. Nobody messes with my family. The next day James made the offer to Vincent. Double the market value of his shares. Take the money and disappear. Vincent laughed at first, but when he realized Harrison was serious, that the offer was real and backed by real money, he got quiet. This doesn't change anything, Vincent said to James. I still hate him. But you'll take the money, James said. It wasn't a question. Vincent took the money. $200 million for his 15% stake. It hurt Harrison's bank account, but it was worth it. Vincent signed the papers, sold his shares back to Blake Industries and disappeared. The threat was over. That night Harrison and Brianna celebrated quietly, just the two of them with a nice dinner in the dining room. Harrison raised his glass. To my brilliant wife, he said. Who saved my company with one simple idea. To my husband, Brianna replied. Who trusted me enough to let me help. They clinked glasses, then Harrison reached across the table to take her hand. I meant what I said earlier. I've never seen you more attractive than when you were plotting Vincent's defeat. You're fierce, Brianna. Strong. You don't back down. Neither do you, Brianna said. We make a good team. The best team, Harrison agreed. But the threat from Vincent had left its mark. That night, Harrison held Brianna close, unwilling to let her go. She could feel the tension in his body, the fear he was trying to hide. He could have hurt you, Harrison said quietly into the darkness of his room. After that night, they had started sleeping in the same bed, finding comfort in each other's presence. If I hadn't bought him out, if he had tried something. But he didn't, Brianna reminded him. We handled it together. We won. This time, Harrison said. But I have other enemies, Brianna. Other people who would love to see me fail. Being with me puts you in danger. Maybe you should. Stop, Brianna interrupted. Don't even think about pushing me away to protect me. I'm not going anywhere. I can handle danger. I can handle threats. What I can't handle is you shutting me out again. Harrison pulled her closer, burying his face in her hair. I love you, he whispered. God help me, I love you so much and I'm terrified of losing you. Brianna's heart soared. It was the first time he had said those words. I love you too, she whispered back. And you're not going to lose me. Not to Vincent Crawford. Not to anyone. I'm here to stay, Harrison Blake. You're stuck with me. Harrison laughed, a sound of pure relief. Good. Because I don't think I could survive without you anymore. They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, two people who had found each other in the most unlikely way, but who had chosen each other in the end. The threat from Vincent was gone, but they both knew there would be other challenges. Other obstacles. But they would face them together. Because love wasn't about being safe or comfortable. Love was about choosing someone every single day and facing the world as a team. And that's exactly what Harrison and Brianna had become. Team. Partners. And maybe, just maybe, they were also becoming something even more powerful. They were becoming truly, completely happy. The morning after Harrison's confession of love, Brianna woke up to sunlight streaming through the windows and Harrison's arm around her waist. She lay there for a moment, savoring the warmth and the feeling of being exactly where she belonged. You're awake, Harrison murmured, pulling her closer. I could tell by your breathing. Stalker, Brianna teased, turning to face him. How long have you been awake? An hour maybe, Harrison admitted. I was watching you sleep. That's probably creepy, isn't it? Extremely creepy, Brianna agreed, but she was smiling. But I'll allow it this once. Harrison kissed her forehead, then her nose, then finally her lips. Good. Because I plan to watch you sleep every morning for the rest of our lives. The rest of our lives? Brianna repeated. That's a long time. Not long enough, Harrison said seriously. Brianna, I know our contract said 1 year. I know we agreed to divorce after that. But I don't want that anymore. I want forever. I want to really be married to you. Not because of a contract or my grandfather's will, but because I love you. Brianna felt tears prick her eyes. I want that too. But Harrison, we need to talk about something. Okay, Harrison said, sitting up. What is it? Brianna sat up too, pulling the sheet around her. This whole thing started because you needed to be married to access your inheritance. In 3 months you turn 36. You'll get the inheritance. So I need to know. If you didn't need the money, if there was no inheritance, would you still want to be with me? Harrison looked stunned. You think I'm with you for the money? I think the money brought us together, Brianna clarified. But I need to know what keeps us together. Is it love or is it convenience? Harrison took her face in his hands, looking directly into her eyes. Brianna Thompson Blake, listen to me very carefully. I could lose every penny I have tomorrow, lose my company, lose everything, and I would still want you. You are the best thing that has ever happened to me. You make me laugh. You make me think. You make me want to be better. The inheritance is just money. You are my life. Okay, Brianna whispered. I needed to hear that. Good, Harrison said, kissing her again. Because I need you to know something else. The contract we signed? I'm tearing it up. Today. It's over. From now on, we're married because we choose to be, not because of any legal obligation. But what if I want to leave? Brianna asked, testing him. Then you leave, Harrison said simply. I won't stop you. I won't hold you to anything. You're free to go whenever you want. But I really hope you'll choose to stay. I'm staying, Brianna said, throwing her arms around him. I'm definitely staying. They spent the morning in bed, talking and laughing and making plans for their future. Harrison wanted to know everything about Brianna's dreams for teaching. She wanted to know about his plans for the company. They talked about travel, about family, about all the things they wanted to do together. I want to meet your mother properly, Harrison said. Not in a hospital. I want to have dinner with your family. I want them to know that I love their daughter, that I'm going to spend my life making her happy. They'd like that, Brianna said. My dad still feels guilty about what happened. He needs to see that something good came out of it. Something incredible came out of it, Harrison corrected. I got you. Later that afternoon, James Mitchell arrived with papers for Harrison to sign. He looked between Harrison and Brianna, noting the way they sat close together on the couch, the way Harrison's hand rested on Brianna's knee, the way they looked at each other like nothing else in the world mattered. I see congratulations are in order, James said, smiling. It's about time you two figured it out. You knew? Brianna asked. I'm a lawyer, James said. I'm trained to read people. Harrison's been in love with you since the charity gala. He came to my office the next day and asked if there was a way out of the contract that wouldn't hurt you. He was already trying to figure out how to keep you in his life. Brianna looked at Harrison. You never told me that. I was scared, Harrison admitted. I thought you'd think I was crazy. We barely knew each other. But you already loved me, Brianna said, her heart full. I already loved you, Harrison confirmed. James cleared his throat. Well, I hate to interrupt this moment, but we have business to discuss. Harrison, the board wants to throw a party to celebrate your marriage. A real celebration now that the Vincent situation is resolved. They think it would be good for company morale and investor confidence. What do you think, Brianna? Harrison asked. Do you want a big party? Will there be dancing? Brianna asked. If you want dancing, there will be dancing, Harrison promised. Then yes, Brianna said. Let's have a party. Let's celebrate. The party was scheduled for 2 weeks later, giving them time to plan properly. Brianna threw herself into the preparations, working with Mrs. Chin and a team of event planners. She chose every detail carefully. The flowers would be bright and colorful. The menu would include both elegant dishes and comfort food. The music would be a mix of everything, something for everyone. You're really good at this, Mrs. Chin said as they reviewed the final plans. Have you ever thought about event planning? Not really, Brianna admitted. But I am thinking about what I want to do after I get my teaching credential. I love working with kids, but maybe I could also teach adults. Maybe I could help people who didn't finish school get their GEDs. Give them a second chance at education. That's a wonderful idea, Mrs. Chin said. You have such a kind heart, dear. Harrison is very lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have him too, Brianna said, meaning it completely. The night before the party, Harrison surprised Brianna with a small box. Inside was a new wedding ring, different from the one he had given her at the courthouse. This one was delicate and beautiful, a platinum band with small diamonds arranged in the shape of a heart. The first ring was for a business arrangement, Harrison explained. This ring is for love. For the real marriage we're building together. Will you wear it? Always, Brianna promised, letting him slip it onto her finger. It fit perfectly, just like they fit perfectly together. The party was magical. Held in the grand ballroom of an elegant hotel, it brought together everyone important in Harrison's business life, plus Brianna's family and the estate staff who had become like family to her. Her parents were there, her mother healthy and glowing. Tyler was there with his girlfriend, a sweet girl named Rachel. Even some of Brianna's old friends from the neighborhood came, dressed in their finest clothes and marveling at the elegant surroundings. Brianna wore a stunning gown in deep emerald green that made her skin glow. Harrison couldn't take his eyes off her all night. They danced together, slow and close, while everyone watched and smiled. "Thank you," Harrison whispered in her ear as they swayed to the music. "For what?" Brianna asked. "For saving me," Harrison said. "I was so alone before you. I had money and success, but I had no one. You gave me a reason to let people in. A reason to love." "You saved me too," Brianna said. "I was stuck, going nowhere, afraid to dream. You gave me the courage to want more. To believe I deserved more." They kissed then, right there in the middle of the dance floor, and the room erupted in applause. Brianna laughed against Harrison's lips, feeling pure joy bubble up inside her. Later in the evening, Harrison made a speech, thanking everyone for coming. But then he turned to Brianna, taking her hand and pulling her to stand beside him. "Most of you know that Brianna and I got married rather quickly," Harrison said, his voice carrying across the room. "What you don't know is that it started as a business arrangement. I needed a wife for personal reasons. Brianna needed help for her family. We agreed to 1 year of marriage, after which we would divorce quietly and go our separate ways." Brianna looked at him, wondering where he was going with this. They hadn't discussed him sharing this information. "But something unexpected happened," Harrison continued. "I fell completely, hopelessly in love with my wife. She saw past the walls I had built. She saw the real me, the person I had hidden from everyone else. And somehow, miraculously, she loved me back." Tears were streaming down Brianna's face now. The room was completely silent, everyone listening. "So tonight, in front of all of you, I want to make a promise," Harrison said, turning to face Brianna fully. "Brianna Thompson Blake, I promise to love you every day for the rest of my life. I promise to support your dreams the way you've supported mine. I promise to be honest with you even when it's hard. I promise to let you in, to trust you, to share everything with you. You are my partner, my best friend, and the love of my life. Thank you for choosing me." The room erupted in applause again, and Brianna threw her arms around Harrison, kissing him with everything she had. She didn't care that everyone was watching. She didn't care that she was crying. All she cared about was this man, this incredible man who had started as a stranger and become her everything. "I love you," she said against his lips. "I love you more," Harrison replied. "Not possible," Brianna said, laughing through her tears. Later, after the party wound down and they were alone in the car on the way home, Harrison took Brianna's hand and kissed her palm. "I have something else to give you," he said, pulling out an envelope. "Open it." Brianna opened the envelope and found documents inside. Legal papers. She scanned them quickly, then looked up at Harrison in shock. "You're funding a community center?" she asked. "With an education program?" "Not just any education program," Harrison said. "Your education program. GED classes for adults who didn't finish school. Tutoring for kids who need extra help. Everything you've been dreaming about. You'll run it. It's yours, Brianna. Your chance to make a real difference." Brianna burst into tears again. "Harrison, this is too much. This is what you deserve," Harrison interrupted. "You've given me so much. Let me give you this. Let me help you build your dream." "Thank you," Brianna whispered. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "Stop thanking me and just accept it," Harrison said, echoing the words he had said months ago. "Accept the help. Accept the love. Accept all of it." "I do," Brianna said. "I accept all of it. With gratitude and love." That night, as they lay in bed together, Brianna thought about how much her life had changed. 6 months ago, she had been desperate and hopeless, agreeing to marry a stranger to save her family. Now she was lying in the arms of the man she loved, with a future full of possibilities ahead of her. "What are you thinking about?" Harrison asked, running his fingers through her curls. "About how happy I am," Brianna said. "About how I never thought this was possible." "Me neither," Harrison admitted. "I thought I'd be alone forever. I thought that was safer. But now I know that being alone isn't safe. It's just lonely. Having you is worth any risk." "Even when I'm annoying?" Brianna teased. "Especially when you're annoying," Harrison said, laughing. "Which is most of the time." Brianna smacked his chest playfully and he caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. They fell asleep like that, hands clasped together, hearts beating in sync, two people who had found love in the most unexpected place. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dreams to pursue, new obstacles to overcome. But they would face it all together. Because that's what love was. Not just the happy moments, but the commitment to stay, to work, to build something lasting. And that's exactly what Harrison and Brianna were doing. Building a life. Building a love. Building a future that was brighter than anything either of them had ever imagined possible. 2 months after the party, Brianna stood in the community center she now ran, watching a class of adult students work on their math assignments. The Thompson Blake Community Education Center had opened just last week, and already it was serving 30 students with more signing up every day. The center occupied a beautiful renovated building in the heart of the city, with bright classrooms, a library, a computer lab, and space for childcare so parents could attend classes without worrying about their kids. Harrison had funded everything, but he had let Brianna design it all, trusting her vision completely. Mrs. Blake. One of her students, a woman named Rosa Garcia who was working toward her GED, raised her hand. "Can you help me with this problem?" Brianna walked over, smiling. "Of course. Let's take a look." As she helped Rosa work through the math problem, Brianna felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was what she was meant to do. Help people learn. Give them hope. Show them that it was never too late to change your life. After class ended, Brianna was packing up her materials when her phone rang. It was Harrison. "Hey," she answered. "How's your day going?" "Good, but I miss you," Harrison said, and Brianna could hear the smile in his voice. "What time will you be home?" "Around 6, Brianna said. "I have one more class, then I'm all yours." "Perfect," Harrison said. "I'll make dinner. Or attempt to make dinner. No promises it will be edible." Brianna laughed. Harrison was many things, but a cook was not one of them. "How about I pick up something on the way home?" "Even better," Harrison agreed. "I love you." "I love you too," Brianna said, still getting a thrill every time she said those words. That evening, as they ate takeout together in the dining room that had once felt so formal and cold but now felt warm and lived in, Harrison took Brianna's hand across the table. "I have news," he said. "The board approved my proposal. Blake Industries is launching a new division focused on affordable housing and community development. We're going to build housing that people can actually afford, create jobs in underserved neighborhoods, invest in communities that need it most." "Harrison, that's amazing," Brianna said, squeezing his hand. "I'm so proud of you." "It was your idea," Harrison reminded her. "You told me that real success isn't about how much money you make, it's about how many lives you improve. You changed my whole perspective on business." "We changed each other," Brianna corrected. "You showed me that it's okay to dream big. I showed you that success means more than money. We're better together." "Much better," Harrison agreed. Later, as they sat in the library together, reading in comfortable silence, Brianna looked up from her book and studied Harrison. He was focused on a business report, his brow furrowed in concentration. She loved this man so much it sometimes scared her. How had she gotten so lucky? "You're staring again," Harrison said without looking up. "Can't help it," Brianna said. "You're worth staring at." Harrison put down his report and crossed the room to her, pulling her up from her chair and into his arms. "Dance with me." "There's no music," Brianna pointed out. "We don't need music," Harrison said, and he started swaying with her, humming softly. They moved together in the quiet library, just the two of them, and it was perfect. "Brianna," Harrison said after a few moments, "I need to tell you something." "Okay," Brianna said, looking up at him. "I got the inheritance last week," Harrison said. "The money from my grandfather. It came through on my birthday." "Your birthday was last week?" Brianna asked, pulling back. "Why didn't you tell me? We should have celebrated." "Every day with you is a celebration," Harrison said. "But that's not the point. The point is, now that I have the inheritance, I don't need it. I'm giving it away." Brianna blinked. "Giving it away?" "Harrison, that's a lot of money," Harrison finished. "Yes, but I've been thinking about what really matters. I have my company. I have our home. I have you. The money is just sitting there. So I'm using it to create a foundation. The Harrison and Brianna Blake Foundation. It will fund education programs, affordable housing, medical care for families who can't afford it. All the things we care about." "Harrison," Brianna breathed, tears filling her eyes. "You named it after both of us?" "Of course," Harrison said. "You're my partner in everything. This foundation is our legacy. The good we'll do together. What do you think?" I think you're the most incredible man I've ever met, Brianna said, kissing him. I think I love you more every single day. Good, Harrison said. Because I'm not done surprising you. There's something else. He reached into his pocket and pulled out another envelope. Brianna took it, her hands shaking slightly, and opened it. Inside was a legal document. Adoption papers, she read, confused. For the kids at your center, Harrison explained. I know you've been working with the state to help some of your students who are in foster care. These papers establish us as potential foster and adoptive parents. If any of your kids need a home, we can provide one. Brianna stared at him, speechless. She had mentioned just once in passing how heartbreaking it was that some of her younger students were in the foster system, bouncing from home to home. She hadn't asked Harrison to do anything about it. But he had heard her. He had listened and he had acted. We don't have to use them, Harrison said quickly, misreading her silence. I just thought, if the right situation came up. I know we haven't talked about kids yet, but… Yes, Brianna interrupted. Yes. Harrison, this is perfect. You're perfect. I'm far from perfect, Harrison said, but he was smiling. I'm just a man who loves his wife and wants to make her happy. Mission accomplished, Brianna said, wrapping her arms around him. I'm so happy I don't even know how to express it. They stood there in the library holding each other, and Brianna thought about the journey that had brought them here. It had started with desperation and coercion. A business deal. A contract marriage. But somehow, impossibly, it had transformed into the truest love she had ever known. Over the next few months, their lives settled into a beautiful rhythm. Brianna ran her center during the day, teaching and mentoring and changing lives. Harrison ran his company, but with a new focus on social responsibility and community impact. At night, they came home to each other, sharing meals and stories and dreams for the future. They visited Brianna's family regularly, and her parents could see how genuinely happy she was. Her father had rebuilt his construction business with Harrison's help, this time on a more solid foundation. Tyler had started college, studying engineering, his tuition fully covered by a scholarship from the Blake Foundation. You know what the best part is? Brianna's mother said one Sunday afternoon as they all had lunch together at the estate. Seeing how you look at each other. When I first heard about this marriage, I was worried. I thought you were sacrificing yourself for us. But now I see that God had a plan all along. I don't know about God, Harrison said honestly. But I do know I'm grateful every day that Brianna said yes. Even though I gave her no real choice, she still chose to give me a chance. That's the real miracle. You gave her a choice, Brianna's father said firmly. You could have been cruel. You could have made demands. But you were kind even when you were trying to be cold. You took care of our whole family even though your contract was just with Brianna. That says something about your character. Harrison looked uncomfortable with the praise, but Brianna squeezed his hand under the table. He was still learning to accept kindness, still learning that he deserved to be loved. But he was getting better at it every day. One evening, as winter turned to spring, Brianna had a surprise of her own for Harrison. She had been feeling strange for a few weeks, tired and emotional, and finally she had gone to the doctor. Now she sat in the library waiting for Harrison to come home from work, her heart pounding with excitement and nervousness. When Harrison walked in, still wearing his suit, Brianna stood up and walked over to him. She took his hands and looked up into his green eyes. I have something to tell you, she said. What is it? Harrison asked, immediately concerned. Are you okay? I'm better than okay, Brianna said, smiling. Harrison, I'm pregnant. We're having a baby. Harrison stared at her, his expression cycling through shock, confusion, and then pure joy. A baby? We're having a baby? In about 7 months, Brianna confirmed. Harrison let out a whoop of joy and picked Brianna up, spinning her around. We're having a baby? I'm going to be a dad. Careful, Brianna laughed. Pregnant wife here. Sorry, Harrison said, setting her down gently. Then he knelt down and placed his hands on her still flat stomach. Hello in there. I'm your dad. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I promise I'm going to try my best. I'm going to love you and protect you and give you everything you need. And your mom is the most amazing person in the world, so you're already lucky. Brianna ran her fingers through Harrison's hair, tears streaming down her face. You're going to be a wonderful father. I hope so, Harrison said, standing and pulling her close. I never thought I'd have this. A family. A real family. A wife I love, a child on the way, a life that means something. You gave me all of this, Brianna. We gave it to each other, Brianna corrected. I was just as lost as you before we met. Just as stuck. We saved each other, Harrison. That night, they lay in bed together, Harrison's hand resting on Brianna's stomach even though there was nothing to feel yet. They talked about baby names and nursery colors and all the things they wanted to teach their child. Our kid is going to have everything, Harrison said. The best schools, the best opportunities, everything money can buy. But more importantly, Brianna added, our kid is going to have love. Real, unconditional love. That's the most valuable thing we can give. Agreed, Harrison said. Love first. Everything else is just extra. As Brianna drifted off to sleep, safe and warm in Harrison's arms, she thought about how far they had both come. From a desperate agreement in the back of a car to a real, deep, lasting love. From strangers to partners to parents-to-be. Life hadn't turned out the way she expected. It had turned out so much better. And she knew with absolute certainty that whatever came next, they would face it together. Because that's what love did. It gave you strength. It gave you courage. It gave you someone to hold on to when the world got scary. And Brianna had Harrison. The man who had started as her husband in name only, but who had become her husband in every way that mattered. Her partner. Her best friend. Her love. Forever and always. 6 months later, Brianna stood in the newly decorated nursery, one hand resting on her very pregnant belly. The room was painted a soft yellow, gender-neutral since they had decided to be surprised. Stuffed animals lined the shelves, and a beautiful wooden crib stood ready, waiting for its tiny occupant. You're supposed to be resting, Harrison said from the doorway, carrying a glass of water. Doctor's orders. I am resting, Brianna protested. I'm just standing here looking at the nursery. Standing for too long makes your feet swell, Harrison said, guiding her to the comfortable rocking chair in the corner. Sit. Drink water. Let me worry about everything else. Brianna had to smile. Harrison had become ridiculously overprotective during her pregnancy, monitoring everything from what she ate to how much she walked. It would have been annoying if it wasn't so endearing. The center is doing so well, Brianna said as Harrison knelt beside her chair, his hand going automatically to her belly. Rosa passed her GED test last week. She cried when I gave her the certificate. She said she never thought she'd finish high school even late. That's amazing, Harrison said. You're changing lives, Brianna. We're changing lives, Brianna corrected. This baby is going to grow up knowing that helping others matters. That money is a tool for good, not just something to hoard. The baby kicked hard right under Harrison's hand and his face lit up. Did you feel that? I always feel it, Brianna laughed. Your child is very active in there. Our child, Harrison corrected, leaning in to kiss her belly. And I love that they're active. Means they're healthy. Over the past months, they had settled into their life together completely. Harrison had softened in ways Brianna never imagined possible. He smiled more. Laughed more. The cold, distant man she had married was gone, replaced by someone warm and loving and present. The Blake Foundation was thriving, funding projects all over the city. They had built 2 new affordable housing complexes, opened 3 more community education centers modeled after Brianna's, and provided medical care for hundreds of families. Harrison's business was more successful than ever, but now success meant something different to him. It meant making a positive impact, not just making money. I've been thinking, Harrison said, still rubbing Brianna's belly, about renewing our vows. Brianna looked down at him. We renewed them at the party, remember? That was me making speeches, Harrison said. I want a real ceremony. Small and intimate, just us and our families and closest friends. I want to stand in front of everyone we love and promise to be your husband for real this time. No contracts. No business arrangements. Just love. When? Brianna asked, her heart full. Soon, Harrison said. Before the baby comes. I want to start this new chapter right. You, me, and our growing family. What do you say? Yes, Brianna said, cupping his face. Always yes to you. The ceremony took place 2 weeks later in the gardens of the estate. It was a perfect spring day, warm and sunny with flowers blooming everywhere. Brianna wore a simple white dress in soft cotton that accommodated her pregnant belly. Harrison wore a suit in deep blue, and his eyes were wet with tears when he saw her walking toward him, her father at her side. Their families were there. Brianna's parents and Tyler with Rachel, who were now engaged themselves. Mrs. Chen and the estate staff. James Mitchell and other close friends. About 30 people total, everyone who mattered most to them. The officiant was a kind older woman who had gotten to know Harrison and Brianna over the past months. She smiled at them as they stood together, Harrison's hand in Brianna's, the sun shining down on them. "We are here today to witness Harrison and Brianna renew their wedding vows," the officiant began. "These two people have traveled an unusual path to get here. They married for practical reasons, but they stayed married for the best reason of all. Love. True, deep, lasting love." Harrison went first, his voice steady and strong. "Brianna, when I asked you to marry me, it was the worst proposal in the history of proposals. I gave you no choice, no romance, nothing but a cold business deal. But you said yes anyway. You saved your family, but you also saved me. You taught me how to love, how to trust, how to be vulnerable. You showed me that having walls might keep you safe, but it also keeps you alone. And being alone isn't really being safe at all." He paused, wiping his eyes. "I promise to love you every day for the rest of my life. I promise to be a good father to our child. I promise to support your dreams and celebrate your successes. I promise to be honest even when it's hard. I promise to choose you every single day over and over again. You are my heart, Brianna. My home. My everything." Now Brianna was crying too. She took a deep breath and began her own vows. "Harrison, when you proposed to me in the back of that car, I hated you. I thought you were heartless and cruel. But I was wrong. You're one of the kindest people I've ever met. You just learned to hide it because people hurt you. I'm honored that you let me see the real you. The you that cares deeply but pretends not to. The you that gives millions to charity but downplays it as nothing. The you that holds me when I'm sad and celebrates with me when I'm happy." She squeezed his hands. "I promise to love you exactly as you are. I promise to call you out when you start building walls again. I promise to be your partner in everything. I promise to raise our child with love and kindness, teaching them everything you've taught me about strength and generosity. I promise to choose you every single day. You are my unexpected blessing, Harrison. My once-in-a-lifetime love." They exchanged new rings, simple matching platinum bands engraved with their wedding date and the words "True Love." Then the officiant pronounced them husband and wife again, and they kissed while everyone cheered. The celebration that followed was joyful and relaxed. They ate good food, danced to music, and laughed with their loved ones. Brianna's mother pulled her aside at one point, hugging her carefully. "I am so proud of you, baby girl," her mother said. "You turned an impossible situation into something beautiful. That takes courage and grace." "I just followed my heart," Brianna said. "Harrison made it easy." "No," her mother said. "You both made it easy for each other. That's what real love is. Two people choosing to make things easy, choosing to support each other, choosing kindness over selfishness. You and Harrison have that. Hold on to it." As the sun began to set, Harrison led Brianna away from the party, down one of the garden paths. They walked slowly, Brianna waddling a bit with her large belly, until they reached a spot overlooking the valley below. "This is where I first realized I was falling for you," Harrison said. "I came here one night about a month after we got married and I couldn't stop thinking about you. About the way you read in the library with your feet tucked under you. About the way you hummed while you cooked. About the way you looked at me like I was worth knowing, even when I was trying so hard to keep you at arm's length. I fell for you in the library," Brianna admitted. "You made some comment about the book I was reading and for a second you smiled. A real smile. And I thought, there's a whole person in there, hidden behind the walls. I wanted to know that person. And now you do," Harrison said, pulling her close. "You know all of me. The good parts and the broken parts. And somehow, miraculously, you love all of it." "I love all of it," Brianna confirmed. "Even the broken parts. Especially the broken parts because they made you who you are." They stood there as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, two people who had found each other in the strangest way, but who fit together perfectly. In 2 weeks they would welcome their daughter into the world. A baby girl they would name Hope, because that's what they had given each other. Hope for a better future. Hope for real love. Hope that even the darkest situations could transform into something beautiful. "Thank you," Harrison whispered into Brianna's hair. "For what?" Brianna asked. "For saying yes," Harrison said. "For giving me a chance. For loving me even when I was unlovable. For showing me that life is about more than just surviving. It's about living. Really living. With all the risk and vulnerability and messiness that comes with it." "Thank you for being brave enough to ask," Brianna replied. "Even if you did it in the worst way possible." Harrison laughed. "I'm never letting you forget that, am I?" "Never," Brianna agreed, laughing with him. "It's too good a story. How I married a billionaire who practically kidnapped me, then fell completely in love with him." "That's not how it happened," Harrison protested. "That's exactly how it happened," Brianna teased. "But it's okay. I forgive you. Because look where we ended up. Where they ended up was better than anything either of them could have imagined. A real marriage built on love and respect. A baby on the way. Careers they were passionate about. A life full of purpose and meaning. They had everything money could buy, but more importantly, they had everything money couldn't buy. Love, trust, partnership, family. 2 weeks later, Hope Elizabeth Blake entered the world at 3:47 in the morning, weighing 7 pounds 2 ounces. She was perfect, with her mother's dark skin and her father's green eyes. Harrison cried when he held her for the first time, this tiny miracle that he and Brianna had created together. "Hello, Hope," he whispered to his daughter. "I'm your dad. I'm going to mess up sometimes, but I promise I will always love you. I promise I will always protect you. I promise I will teach you to be kind and strong and generous. And I promise I will show you every single day that you are loved beyond measure." Brianna watched from the hospital bed, exhausted and happy and so full of love she thought she might burst. This was her family. Her real family. The husband who had started as a stranger but become her soulmate. The daughter they had created together. The life they were building one day at a time. "We did good," she said to Harrison. "We did great," Harrison corrected, bringing Hope over to the bed so Brianna could hold her. "We created a miracle." And as they sat there together, the three of them, a new family figuring things out, Brianna knew this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead. Sleepless nights and diaper disasters. Disagreements and difficult days. But they would face it all together with love leading the way. Because that's what they had learned. That love wasn't about perfect beginnings or fairy tale romances. Love was about choosing each other every single day through good times and bad. It was about supporting each other's dreams and forgiving each other's mistakes. It was about building something real and lasting brick by brick, day by day. Harrison and Brianna's story hadn't started well. It had started with desperation and debt and a cold business proposition. But it had transformed into something beautiful. Something worth celebrating. A love story for the ages, proving that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. And as Hope yawned and snuggled into her mother's arms, as Harrison kissed both his wife and daughter, as the morning sun streamed through the hospital window, Brianna smiled. Because this wasn't an ending. This was a happy beginning.